Welcome to Hometown Huddle, episode 24. I'm your host, Drake Watson. Listen, over the weekend, we were at WesBanco Arena for the 72nd Ron Mauck OVAC wrestling tournament. We sat down before all the action on Saturday with the directors of the tournament, Shane Shaffer and Rich McCardle. Here's a look now at that exclusive interview. Pleased to be joined by OVAC Wrestling Director Shane Shaffer. Pleased to be joined by OVAC Wrestling Tournament Assistant Director Rich McCardle. Glad to have you guys on with us to give us a little inside look at what's going on here at WesBanco Arena ahead of the big day, Saturday. This is Saturday morning. You've got some wrestling already in the books, and you're looking forward to another great tournament here, 72nd Ron Mauck OVAC Wrestling Tournament.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Had the introduction last night of the girls tournament and had a couple hiccups here and there, but overall I thought it went really well.
Definitely a learning process. And even last night when we were doing our final setup at 10 or so, we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
So it's been a learning curve, which is fine. We've got that straightened out and we're ready to roll.
You guys touched on it already. This is the first year you've had a girls tournament coincide with the boys tournament here at WesBanco. You mentioned that maybe caused some hiccups here and there. Other than that, what are your takeaways thus far from, if we drill down on having the girls tournament at the same time, what are some things you guys have noticed with that so far?
Well, probably you can see in the background here, typically the boys tournament would have 4 mats for finals. We are now wrestling 6 mats because we need the extra mat space. We're down, we'd have the 4 mats down the center. Last night, Rich was talking about, we went to set our clocks up to go plug them in and realized our extension cords aren't long enough to be able to reach. So we had to drop some power from the ceiling to be able to get that taken care of. So that's one of the little hiccups.
Well, I mean, yeah, and then you're setting up where you're going to put your tables, where your workers are going to be, where you're going to place your clocks, like things that we sat and talked, came down and talked about it for, a couple hours one day, walking around the arena, looking, okay, well, we can do this, and no one thought about, this or that. And so, again, as you go through it, you work through it, and
it's this kind of logistics things that I think the average person might not be aware of that go into it. Like, we're talking about extension cords, and, we're about to wrestle a whole bunch, and we've got a whole bunch of different things that go into it. And I think that's something that comes with the title that you guys have, directing this tournament. I mentioned to you guys yesterday that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are going to walk into WesBanco Arena, they're going to watch wrestling, and they're going to walk out. And it's never going to cross their mind all the things, the little things that you guys do that go into this to pull this off. I mean, I'm sure there was a hockey game not long ago in here. There's going to be a hockey game pretty soon in here. All that stuff. You've got to get the mats in here. You've got to get all these things. Is there anything in particular that you guys think, the average person that walks in here might not be thinking about that you think is the most intriguing thing that they would be kind of surprised to know about that goes into what you guys try to pull off here?
I want to go with probably the turnover from when people walked out of here. There were 8 mats in the building. They come back in, there's 6, a whole new setup. Clocks are different places, and that takes a lot of people. I mean, that's not Shane just doing it or me just doing it. It's WesBanco helping. You'd say, okay, you have hockey. They had hockey the other day. Mm-hmm. They'll turn around and have hockey tonight or tomorrow night, and we have to logistically work with them on mats.
Yeah.
When they got to go, when they have to go out, when can they come in? So,
and not even on our part of when can they go out is when can the schools come to be able to pick them up.
Sure.
Because right now Ohio County had 6 mats here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ohio County had 6 mats, and West Liberty was generous enough to lend us 2 mats. But, when they come to pick them up, it may be, West Liberty may not be able to get here till Wednesday. So Now we got to work with the WesBanco and be able to store those mats somewhere.
And the weather becomes a part.
Sure,
Everyone was talking about it last night. Oh, we're going to get snow. Well, I've been doing this. It's 25 years for me, and back when I first started, we would be out of school. All schools would have been out, and I was working at Willing Park as a career and technical director, and my resource officer and I would take the band truck and go to schools and load the mats up ourselves, just the two of us. And that's back when you had the old mats.
The Dolomers.
The Dolomers that were 3 pieces, and they weren't light. But
No, not at all.
What was nice is my resource officer, he's passed away, Ron Meyer, he was a beast, and we just loaded stuff up and off we went.
Tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle is proudly brought to you by Waterfront Hall. Anything from food, a bar, live music, different events, weddings, a spa, you name it, they've got it all here at the Waterfront Hall, right in Wheeling, the heart of the Ohio Valley, right between WesBanco Arena and Interstate 70. Once again, big thanks to Waterfront Hall for sponsoring tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. You can visit them at www.waterfronthall.com. Anything in particular as far as the participants in the tournament that has stuck out to you guys, or that you're looking forward to, relating to this year specifically, the 72nd? What are some thoughts on the tournament as it stands right now?
There's obviously great competition from all classes there. That's one of the nice things about this tournament is that, although we give out the single A, double A, the triple A, 4A, and 5A, team and runner-up awards, that the kids are all competing in the same tournament. So, they get to see where they actually fare in the Ohio Valley. As far as individual stuff goes, there's so much that, I haven't got to watch very much wrestling down here. Most of the stuff that I've been doing it has been putting out fires that, pop up, and so I leave that, and that's what really helps. Rich is great as far as making sure all the little details, before you guys, or as you guys were setting up, he was walking around putting the numbers on the clocks, something that people won't notice or see, but
no one thinks of it.
But it has to be done. We have to run wires underneath the mats and make, and he comes in there and takes care of that. We have Bob Means and Mike Carmen, Nikki Duncan that are up there taking care of the technical portion of things, where they're running the track wrestling. Dan, previous tournament director, he works very closely with me, and when I start to do something that might not be quite right, he's there to catch me.
Or not Dan Doyle's way, but whatever.
And his brothers Pat and Chooch, they're out here lining up all the wrestlers, taping everything down, getting them ready to go. So there's a lot of people. Jeff Crozier's up there. Any scratches that we have, he's sitting there writing. So it takes a village to run the
guys
tournament.
In the bullpen. I mean, they sit back there all day long, calling out names. I mean, that's their job. You don't even think about it because they're there to do it. They've been doing it for years. The guys that stand back at the door and check people in.
Yep.
We know, they come. They do. It's the third weekend in January, and they come.
Yeah.
You didn't build it, they come. It's the third weekend in January.
Well, I think that's what's so striking is, again, how far removed all those things are from the actual action on the mat. And the things that, some folks in the stands might not be thinking about. Certainly one of the things before, kind of getting a look inside that I wouldn't have thought about. You mentioned yesterday, 39 schools in the tournament this year?
Yes, for boys. And it went down to 38 because, unfortunately, Magnolia, the health department came in and they had a lot of kids out with the flu, so they shut them down, and they weren't allowed to compete in either the boys or the girls. And then that brought us down to 25 teams in the girls.
Okay. What I think is fascinating about the wrestling tournament is it's one of, if not the only one, where you have that level of one-on-one competition where you can have a single A kid and a 5A kid who might be the same exact size, and they can compete head-to-head, and you can have that single A guy take down the 5A guy.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's one of the things I love about the tournament here is that you are competing against, we get a true champion out of the Ohio Valley Athletic Conference.
By classes. We do by classes overall championship. But if you're a single A kid and you're wrestling a 4A kid, 5A kid, it don't matter.
Yeah.
The guy who wins walks away. And he can be from single A Cameron when Cameron back in the day were powerhouse as a small school in this OVAC tournament. They won many a championship.
Yeah, it's like the logo that I'm wearing and the classification that has nothing to do with how many pounds you weigh and who you're going up against and things like that. I think that's one of the coolest things about this thing is you can really see that small school guy go up against the big school guy. When you guys look at your role as a whole that goes into this thing, I'm sure there's a million things that go into it, as we were saying, logistical things. There are, you've got to make sure you got the seating meeting to get all the brackets set up and everything, which I think is an interesting concept. You get the coaches in there and they're all kind of like a selection committee. What is probably, I don't know if favorite's the right word, but what's the most interesting thing that you guys enjoy about the role that you have in putting this all together?
Well, I would say, first of all, it's a year-round job.
Yeah.
So like.
So you don't just wake up January 1st and then get started on wrestling?
No, yeah, it's no, not at all. So we'll have everything, finishing up the tournament and getting everything out of here. Then in a few weeks we'll come down here and settle up with WesBanco as far as the financial portion of things. Then we also have our OVAC MAC wrestling all-star match. So that's going on. We have our dual meet championship that's going on. And even though again we have Danny Doyle takes care of the all-star matches. Jim Rocky is in charge of taking care of the dual meet championships, and those are things that that if you didn't have guys designated to that one thing, because there's a lot involved just with those specific things.
Yeah, sure.
Then we'll come together in the spring and discuss, hey guys, what worked, what didn't, what do we want to change? Because ultimately this is the coaches' tournament. I direct. I have people that are there helping me, making sure I don't screw up, and but ultimately it's the coaches that make the decision on how they want this thing run.
Yeah.
And we sit down. We sit down and have dinner with the representatives of each class. The coach is a representative, and we talk about the tournament and how to make it better. And my satisfaction, I guess, would be is that we want to make sure the coaches enjoy this tournament, and want to come to it, and want to win. And just as a coach, and you coached as well back in the day. I mean, when you're coming in, that's one of your top tournaments. Your two top tournaments when you're a coach, your OVAC and the state championship.
Yeah.
And that's all you work for. And if that's not what you're working for, it's not right for the kids.
Sure.
And then you go straight to the officials. You want to make sure your officials are enjoying themselves and want to come back. Not that they don't get voted in because they get voted in or they get voted out.
Yeah.
But you want them to feel like they're doing a nice job, and ultimately comes down to the kids sitting that go walk on that mat.
Yeah.
And how are they going to do? And are the coaches ready for them? Are the officials ready for them? Do we have everything ready for them so everyone's getting everything done that they need to get done for this tournament?
And just like Rich said, with the fact that as a coach, I would always want it to be OVAC and state championship. But the fact that we're bringing a conference championship, that it means that much. And, I remember wrestling in this when I was a freshman, and I've been setting up this tournament since I was in middle school. When my dad, he was the one that his role was setting up all the mats, so he had me down here rolling out mats.
I took over for his dad to set up mats, and then I moved into another role. You kind of, I guess you
pass the baton.
You started at the bottom,
Yeah.
And the bottom is getting the mats here.
Yeah.
So to you're now the director. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the fact that people want to come, and I will say that Dirk DeCoy, the OVAC commissioner, he uses our tournament as a guide, to how he wants to run other championships. Because one of the things that's different with the OVAC Ron Mauck wrestling tournament is the fact that for the most part we are self-sufficient. We don't rely on the OVAC for those extra funds. They're more than willing to help out, and Dirk's been great as far as, if we have big purchases like retrofitting the clocks this year, the OVAC picked that up. But as far as actually logistics of running the tournament, we are one of the few that actually are self-sustaining.
Yeah, and I was here maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I mean, every seat was seemingly filled. And so you guys bring a lot of folks in here. I think that's the case with all these OVAC championship events. I do the basketball ones every year, and it's just a spectacle. And you might have a state championship that's big in Columbus or Charleston, but to really be the champion and the best, so to speak, of all the schools in your area, your immediate area, I think that's great. And as far as OVAC wrestling, it's changed over the years, given where it was maybe 20 years ago, given to where it is now.
Well, and we're lucky enough that we are the longest standing, I believe.
Longest standing and largest.
Largest, yeah. That's
for using this facility. A few years ago they went through and did some renovations, and it's a beautiful facility. They're great to work with as far as, Sonia in the main office there. Sonia takes care of us, and, anything we need, they're bending over backwards, making sure. And it's to a point that they've been doing it for so long that they already know. They already have their charts back there of how we like stuff set up and where we need tables set up. We'll be skirting championship tables here later. They're a narrower table that we have to find, and we're always trying to track down those.
We were talking
tables.
about them last night, and I turned around, and here comes Jim. Jim's rolling them out. Like, wait a minute, we didn't even talk yet.
Yeah,
but they know, and I don't know that we could put this tournament on anywhere else.
Yeah, it's always good to have that kind of that symmetry and have yourself in a place of alignment with those folks, and especially the venue. I mean, WesBanco's done such a phenomenal job, and it's a I think bigger. If you haven't been here and you walk in for the first time, that's what I think of all the time as a player. Let's say you're a freshman, maybe you've never been here, you just started wrestling, new to it, and you walk in for this tournament and you look up and you're in it now.
You're in it.
Yeah, and it can be a little intimidating, which is one of the issues when you have the young ones. The guys that have been in the tournament a few times, they're used to it. They kind of get it, which is one of the reasons as a coach, trying to get guys to qualify for a state tournament, or be in the finals. Because, tonight when those kids run out on the red carpet and they're running over to their mat, that's a whole new experience in and of itself. So, making sure that they're not intimidated by that and they, that pumps them up and gets them ready to go.
And talking about, like I said, we've been doing this a long time, whether we've been coaching in it, working it, directing it, whatever. Finals, and they started announcing those kids coming out, and they come through off that red carpet. They go, it's still exciting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And we've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
what do you guys, as we get ready for a whole bunch of wrestling here on Saturday, what are you guys most looking forward to here in?
No mistakes.
No hiccups.
The detail-oriented guy would say something like that.
Yeah. No mistakes.
Yeah, and
But
some those mistakes, a lot of times people in the stands don't notice. We'll get
They try
upset.
to keep it. Yeah.
We'll get upset because that's not the way that we planned it. That's not the way we wanted it to go. But we have enough people around that do a good job of covering those mistakes.
Yeah.
No wrestling. Know the tournament. Know what they're doing.
That you don't
fix
have
it
to worry
and you move
about
on. And but I would like Shannon. I've talked to many times. No one up there knows this is wrong.
Right.
Only us.
Yeah.
And we'll fix it and moving forward. But that you want to make sure that the spectators enjoy what they're watching, and you don't want those things to go wrong where mats are down or clocks go down. That's never good. You know what the fans don't like? That.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
Yeah.
They want to watch wrestling.
They want to watch
They
wrestling.
don't want to watch an empty mat and having some bullpen issues and getting wrestlers to the mat.
Yeah.
And why aren't Rich and I will look at why isn't anybody wrestling on mat 6? We need to figure out why.
And then the alarm goes off.
You run to the bullpen, and it not really human error; it's technology error. So now you run back.
Sure.
You tell the tech guy. So, but then you just get it moving.
And coaches, working with us, sometimes coaches are so amped up, they're pulling their kids out of the bullpen, and
we're looking
for the kid, and that's holding us up because they're not where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Those are all just little things. I mean, and we get through it.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost, you're playing. You got to talk to the coach. The coach has to talk to the player. And there's so many different elements to that, and there's so many other things that are probably on your guys' mind that you're thinking about logistically and things like that. We talk about growing the sport. I think is the goal for everybody that's probably in the building right now. You want to grow the sport. You want to grow the recognition for the event that the OVAC puts on, which of course is a great event. I think adding girls wrestling does a lot for that. But even aside from that, as far as growing the sport as a whole, whether it's participation, whether it's fan attendance, things like that, what kind of takeaways do you guys have from what you've been able to do in terms of, making it, I guess, for lack of a better term, more popular now than it ever has been?
I think 2 years ago, Dirk DeCoy, for the championships, that was our 50th overall, the OVAC's.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. That they had offered student attendance for $1.
For $1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it worked so well that they've continued it for the last 2 years. And, for those final sessions where it only cost a kid $1 to get in, that really helped put,
that brings them in,
fans
which is nice.
here. And, and that's good for the sport. It's good for WesBanco. That's a kid that got in for $1 that'll go spend $10 at the concession
Yes, that's what I was just about to say.
You know what I mean? So
it kind of works for everybody.
And they might even drag their parents down here, so because they can't drive. So mom and dad are
mom
coming
and dad
down
bring
to
them,
watch.
drop them off, and they slide over to the waterfront and have dinner, or over the River City and have whatever. So it brings money into the city.
Yeah.
And because we put this on here, it's everyone should benefit. We don't necessarily benefit from it. We have to work, but it's nice that you can try this tournament. Kind of gives back to the community.
Well, and just what he's saying there too is something that a lot of people may not understand is the wrestling's going on here, but outside of here, you've got teams that are spending the night at our local hotels.
That's what I was about to ask about.
That are spending money.
Restaurants.
To go at restaurants, and it may not be the wrestlers because they're watching their weight,
right?
But all of those wrestlers' families are also spending the night, and they're going to all of the restaurants. So it really helps bring in money to the Ohio Valley or into the Ohio County area.
Ohio County area, yeah.
And
not
even
only Ohio, because they'll stay over in Ohio at hotels or
There's
go to
like
a restaurant
17
there
in St. Clairsville.
Yeah. So that's that's
good
a
for
lot of money
everybody.
being.
What I think about, I was talking with some guys last night about that specific concept. That maybe your St. Clairsville or your Wheeling Park, they're probably not going to stay overnight. But do you have any schools from way far out that are staying this year specifically?
Well, I mean, year in, year out. I mean, typically university always comes in and stays.
Yeah, you got Fort Fry. You've got Caldwell. You're clear up to East Liverpool. I mean, you've got some travel or you stay. So you do get a decent amount of teams that will stay around here. A lot will go home. I mean, just financial issues with that.
Sure.
I mean, and the schools in themselves. So
and sometimes it's not even we brought up weather. Weather's always a major concern for us. So I tell the coaches, if you've got we expected weather. That's why for the first time in several years we were actually able to weigh the wrestlers out last night.
Okay,
Typically they would be weighing in today at 9:00 would be weigh-in time. But because of that, trying to give them a little bit of leeway time, a little more travel time, the state granted us permission to go ahead and weigh out last night.
But they still have to weigh in.
But they still have to weigh in.
Not that it counts for anything, but they wanted data on what the difference was of them weighing out at their weight that they're supposed to weigh out, and what did they come in at.
Yeah.
I mean, just data collection stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of stuff. But I've told coaches in our meetings before every session, guys, we're expecting weather. Plan accordingly. Some schools, it all depends on school policy, whether they're allowed to travel or whether they're able to compete. So if they were to, you're like, well, they're not going to let us come if there's too much snow. They'll get a hotel room.
Yeah.
And they'll crash. The one year we had guys sleeping on the mat.
Yeah.
Really?
Overnight.
Yeah, overnight.
Well, I mean, what a better place to stay, obviously, than get right here and get real familiar with the
place
environment.
It's a luxury hotel.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, before we get you guys out of here, you got a ton of things to get to work on. Anything that you guys specifically wanted to showcase or let anybody know that folks might not be aware of, or any kind of last comments before we wrap up here?
You're a good commenter. I don't have much to say.
No, when it comes to this, like I said, nothing. This is not all on one person. It takes a village, and we have so many people in those roles that do such a great job and want to be here. And it's not like they're geting paid,
Right?
to be here to do those things.
You're not in it for the money.
No, it's because you're in it because of the love of the sport, and I can't praise those guys enough that do those individual jobs.
Once again, you're creating a spectacular event for the student athletes, and that's, in my mind, a way of investing in the youth, which there's nothing better that you can do. So, Rich McCardle, Shane Shaffer, thank you guys so much. Looking forward to the wrestling today, and we can't wait to see what happens.
Yep, well, us too. Us too.
Us too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It was a great time down there in Wheeling. It was an excellent conversation with those guys. They really did a nice job for us at pulling back the curtain and telling us about some of the things that, as I mentioned numerous times, we didn't think the average fan would really think about. And we appreciate them for that, and we appreciate their time, and we were so gracious to have been able to speak with them ahead of all the action on Saturday. Now, as Saturday had wrapped up, we've got our results from the 72nd Ron Mauck OVAC Wrestling Tournament. First of all, what an incredible event that is. Once again, you have at least hundreds, if not thousands, over the course of the 3 days of people pouring into WesBanco Arena, and they're all fixated on high school wrestling. And the OVAC does a phenomenal job of making that feel like a big event, not only for the fans and spectators, but also the coaches and the actual wrestlers on the mats. It's incredible. And we were so thrilled to be able to speak with the directors of the tournament and give you an inside look. Not quite inside the huddle. Hometown Huddle was on the road for the first time, and we were glad to be able to do that. It takes a lot of work to pull stuff like that off. And listen, for full transparency's sake, we didn't entirely know that we were going to go on the road until perhaps a matter of hours before that happened. And so the fact that we were able to essentially pick this studio up with not only my hands, but 2 other sets of hands, and take it down to Wheeling, set it up there, conduct the interview, and tear it down, we don't take those things for granted. We were certainly glad to be able to do that. Happy to have you with us. Once again, welcome to Hometown Huddle. We hope you enjoyed the interview and the inside look. Speaking of the rest of the OVAC Wrestling Tournament, as we recap that, obviously that was Saturday morning before everything was finalized. Now that we have the final standings of everything, University is your overall OVAC Wrestling Champion. They're also the 5A champion. Listen, I had a ton of respect for the Barnesville wrestling program as it is, and I had even more respect after I spoke with Jason Steven, their head coach. Great guy. Ran into him on Saturday. Ran into a lot of people on Saturday. Saturday, quite an impactful day for Harco Media Network. And I've got even more respect now. They're runner-up for the entire OVAC tournament, and they're the 3A champ. Cameron is the 2A and the 1A champ. Let me tell you about the 4A champ, though. Beaver Local is the 4A champion at the wrestling tournament, behind Robert Buckeye. I promise, Robert, I hope I'm saying the name correctly. But he wins the 150-pound class, and he becomes the 8th wrestler ever to win 4 OVAC championships. Newsflash, you're only in high school for 4 years, so that tells me he won it as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. That's all great, but then you consider the fact that he's coming off an ACL. We talked about how big of an event this is for not only the fans and people like me who really, I'm just there to watch, and numerous other people are as well. Outside of that, I don't really have any kind of investment in that. But the actual wrestlers, this event's so big that he's coming off ACL surgery, and he accelerated his rehab by about 3 months. These are his words, not mine, just so that he could participate in this tournament. You ask anybody if they think, why they think the OVAC wrestling tournament, by the way, the largest high school wrestling tournament in the nation, the United States, you run into anybody that says, they kind of brush it aside. No, this guy, 1, it's the largest in the nation, and 2, it's guys like this who literally speed up their rehab just so they could participate in it. That's just further proof as to the magnitude of this event. So great stuff. Again, University, Beaver Local, Barnesville. We like Barnesville. Cameron, Robert Buckeye. I hope I'm saying the name right. Congratulations to everybody involved at the OVAC wrestling tournament. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about basketball, because it's basketball season. We're in the thick of it now. We've got a lot of hoops to talk about. We'll come back right after this and talk high school basketball. Tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle is proudly brought to you by Coffman Lawn Care. Listen, spring is rapidly approaching, and that means one thing. You got to get your lawn taken care of. No better way to do it than with Coffman Lawn Care. They're your go-to for all your lawn care, mulch, and cleanup needs. All you got to do is give them a call, 740-491-3639, or find them on Facebook, Coffman Lawn Care, or reach them by email, Coffman15@yahoo.com. That's COFFMAN15@yahoo.com. Don't go wrong this spring. Go with Coffman Lawn Care. Listen, before we know it, that grass is going to start growing. Everything's going to be blossoming, as they say. And if you don't call folks like Coffman Lawn Care in particular, your grass will be up to your knees before you know it. So when that time comes, get it taken care of, and they'll get you taken care of in a good way. All right, Union Local. Let me tell you about Union Local. So first of all, let me express the timeline that was Saturday. Pretty big Saturday for high school athletics in the Ohio Valley, as well as Hometown Huddle, as you know. So we were in Wheeling in the morning. We got there quite early to take care of the interview. Once again, thanks to Rich and Shane. And then we stuck around and experienced the wrestling tournament, had a great time. And then after that, we had to go straight to the Eco Center, because by that point, it was time for the Buckeye 8 championship in girls basketball between Union Local and Indian Creek. We're there, and we're watching this game go back and forth. We're having conversations left and right, by the way, as well. So there's a couple times where we weren't really paying full attention to the game. But we noticed right before halftime, Union Local has a player go down with injury. At that point, that girl was their leading scorer in the game up to that point with 6 points. She goes down, so now you're thinking, oh boy, Union Local's a little bit depleted. If you saw the Facebook clip, we mentioned this. And by the time halftime rolls around, Indian Creek is leading Union Local 20-15. So Union Local's got this deficit. It feels like Creek is playing so much better than Union Local. Again, only a two-score game, but Union Local's now got to deal with an injury. Vinskovich hadn't gotten hot yet. And so we're just, you don't draw conclusions at that point, but you're wondering, is this how it's going to look throughout the second half? Is Indian Creek going to duplicate their first half effort and clinch a Buckeye 8 championship? Well, then the second, that's why it's a game of two halves. That's why we played the second half, because shortly after that, just a number of Union Local players made big plays. First, it was Delaney Butler to put them on top 31-30. I might also add, it was 20-15 Creek at halftime. Creek was up by as much as 8 at some point in the third quarter. I remember it was 30-22. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the run that Union Local may or may not go on. So it's 30-22 Indian Creek. Union Local is battling back. Finally, Butler scores to make it 31-30. Union Local leads for the first time since the first quarter. Then the place really exploded when Ella Greenwood swished a three that put the Jets on top 34-30. And now, just like that, all the momentum is on Union Local's side. And then it's Lakin Vinskovich. It's a couple free throws. It's a layup. It's several plays down in the paint, and it's Vinskovich that leads a second half effort that allows Union Local to overcome the 8-point deficit and clinch a Buckeye 8 championship. Union Local gets the win 48-36. Vinskovich finishes with 20 points. And at one point in the third quarter really was, and again, not early in the third quarter, because Union Local was still down by 8 points at one point in the third, but it was towards the middle, the end of that third quarter, where Vinskovich and company were able to get going, steal the momentum, and steal the game from Indian Creek. And you had to be there because the atmosphere was electric at the Eco Center. I say Eco because the E stands for East, so Maybe it's called the Echo Center. I don't know. If anybody knows what I'm supposed to say, you could let me know. But that leads us to a new segment that will debut on tonight's show. We'll talk now about Dempsey's dogs, right? Who are the dogs? Who are the players of the week, or since we last spoke, that really made an impact in the Ohio Valley? Vinskovich is one of them. She gets the honor of being the first one. Dempsey is looking down, and he's proud, right? Vinskovich, 20 points, scoring on 4 straight possessions. You can't say that she single-handedly got the job done for Union Local because everything like that is a team effort, but I don't think Union Local accomplishes what they did on Saturday night without the effort of Vinskovich, and she's done incredible things for Union Local throughout the entire season. So without a doubt, she is one of Dempsey's dogs, right? And then you can't forget about Robert Buckeye. Again, coming off an ACL, speeding up that rehabilitation process to make sure he can participate in the OVAC, doing so just to win his 4th OVAC title in 4 years. Buckeye is also one of Dempsey's dogs, and that's our segment for the impact players, right? And again, it's plural, so we could pick a couple here and there. And it certainly helps when you have something happen like Saturday, where a couple different players or athletes go off and they really make big impacts for their team. One thing I just have to tell you about is if you ever find yourself in Wheeling, right? The wrestling tournament is over and done with, but there are plenty of reasons to get back to Wheeling. I could think of many right now. One of which is at 1230 Water Street. That's 1230 Water Street in Wheeling, West Virginia. What's there? Nothing other than the Waterfront Hall. If there's nothing to do in the Ohio Valley, as people tell me all the time, you haven't been to the Waterfront Hall. You got to go there if you're hungry. Guess what? Avenue Eats, Wood-Fired Pizza Company. You can't go wrong with either one of them. Wood-Fired Pizza Company, I can say this now, best pizza in the Ohio Valley, and I've genuinely thought that for a long time. Best pizza in the Ohio Valley resides at Waterfront Hall. waterfronthall.com. You can find them on Facebook. Again, 1230 Water Street, Wheeling, West Virginia. But why don't I just show you? Let's take a look now about the Waterfront Hall in Wheeling. Tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle is proudly brought to you by Waterfront Hall. Anything from food, a bar, live music, different events, weddings, a spa, you name it, they've got it all here at the Waterfront Hall, right in Wheeling, the heart of the Ohio Valley, right between WesBanco Arena and Interstate 70. Once again, big thanks to Waterfront Hall for sponsoring tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. You can visit them at www.waterfronthall.com. Pure excellence, right there in Wheeling, right in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Again, if you're hungry, you got to get to the Wood-Fired Pizza Company or Avenue Eats. In the summertime, it's particularly just gorgeous because you're right along the river. Oftentimes, Wheeling does a great job with live music. You've got live music in the Waterfront Hall as well. I've spoken to Dan a number of times, and he has many of the same qualities that successful people in general have, but also successful coaches that we've spoken to. You want to talk about, things being organized, trusting the process, all those things that a lot of us, myself included, talk about, but don't always follow through with. You can tell, given the things that he's built down there, he's a guy that follows through on those things. And so, once again, I couldn't promote Waterfront Hall enough. I would do that for free. Let's take a look now at boys basketball. As of late last night, confirmed, Cambridge, Beaver Local for your boys basketball Buckeye 8 championship. Once again at the Eco Center, that one at 6 o'clock. That's for all of it. That's for the whole thing, for the trophy. Playing for third place at 4 o'clock will be St. Clairsville and Brook. That should be a great game. The nightcap should be a great game with Beaver Local and Cambridge at 6 o'clock. We'll be there. Hometown Huddle will be there, and we will be keeping an eye on that one, and we'll give you an update while we're down there, and certainly we'll be talking about that one on the next episode of Hometown Huddle. Cambridge has done phenomenal things this season in terms of their boys hoops team. Likewise with Beaver Local. Again, I'm hoping for and expecting close games. You would say Cambridge has the edge in that title game, but we hope it's a good one. We hope it lives up to the girls' game, right, with Indian Creek and Union Local. Again, that place was rocking the entire time. Moving along, we've got a number of Ohio Valley football coaches. It's that time of year where you're cycling through, and many teams in the Valley and in the state and in the country, really, when it comes to high school football, well, frankly, in college and then the NFL as well, a lot of teams are looking for new guys to lead their program, new football coaches. Buckeye Local, the first one that we'll talk about, they're looking for a new football coach. I was when I first heard about it, not the least bit surprised. And they are going to look for somebody who can point them in the right direction. Buckeye Local's a program that has struggled to just get it right for such a long time, and it's been coach after coach after coach. And their head guy takes a position at Bethany, and they need somebody that is going to. One of the things, we're going to tie this together with something a little bit later on here in the show with another segment, because they go together so well. But a school like Buckeye Local needs to find somebody that can do a great job at developing players and getting the most out of the players that they have. Again, we'll talk a little bit later on about, the resources that these schools have in terms of the athletes that happen to walk through the hallways, right? Buckeye Local, not the most gifted in that department, and so you've got to get a guy that can maximize what you do have. You think of a guy like Derek O'Hara, perfect example of this. One of the reasons I like to think one of the better coaches around here, especially in the immediate area, because he takes a squad with, let's call it 25, 30 guys, and he gets the most out of them. That's something that you need if you're a Panthers fan. Andrew Yon, I don't know if we talked about this on the show or not. This one, a little bit old news in terms of, it happened a while ago. I thought we mentioned it on the show. Maybe we didn't, but I had the conversation with some folks. Bridgeport is just moving in an entirely different direction in terms of everything. They are really doing a nice job of investing. We'll see how it turns out, but they are investing in the youth just 1,000%, right, at every turn, whether it's academics, athletics, infrastructure, all those things. They are looking to move in a new direction and in a positive direction, and they're very ambitious about that. You have to admire the ambition behind the progress that Bridgeport hopes to make. Included in that is they want their football program to take a step forward as well. So Andrew Yon out at Bridgeport, they're looking for a new guy. And Anthony Pirro at Edison, this one was a little bit shocking because out of all the three that I mentioned so far, you felt like Pirro, I'm not sure what the situation is here. We're pretty decently connected around here in terms of kind of knowing what's going on. This one I'm in the dark on a little bit with Pirro at Edison, and I believe this was his first year, and so Edison's going to need a new guy. Edison's in a pretty good position though, because if you look at their records over the last few years, they've had a decent amount of success. And so you just hope, if you're a Wildcats fan, that the next guy can come in and get the most out of his guys and maybe win 7 or 8 games again this season, right? Coming up in 2026. But I thought, and again, I don't know the reason behind many of these, right? You would have shocked me the most by saying Edison was going to need a new football coach, just given the way that they played last season. I was at the Toronto game. I did their game against Harrison Central. Edison seemingly for the last, we'll call it 5 years, I think, has had a pretty good football program, including a undefeated regular season in 2022. That wasn't Pirro, but I think he was on staff at that point. But again, Edison, in my mind, was the team that I expected the least to need a new football coach. Bridgeport, again, they're just moving in a whole different direction. Buckeye Local, it was no surprise at all given the direction that program was heading and kind of the aroma surrounding that program. So Buckeye Local, this is nothing new for them. The reason I said that we're going to tie that into another segment here is the director's take. What's the director's take on things, right? So I asked, it was getting late. We were approaching Wednesday night, and the director didn't have a take on anything. And I was like, you got to have some thoughts on something, right? And so I'm like, what's your thoughts? And he just sent Curt Cignetti in reference to the fact that Curt Cignetti, as you all know, national champions, Indiana Hoosiers, 16-0, unprecedented run. You know the things. Cignetti went to Morgantown High School. He played. He played for WVU. He played for Morgantown. He's from that kind of I-79 corridor, right? Kind of a Pittsburgh guy. You could talk to him. This is one of the many reasons I love Cignetti. You could just, folks like you and me can't talk to him, but you could hear him talk, and you just hear the Pittsburgh come out, right? You could hear the fact that he literally. It wouldn't shock me if I literally walked up the street right here. I'm pointing up the road if you're listening on podcast. And I could walk to the corner here at Caddis, and I wouldn't be shocked if I ran into him. He's just that kind of guy. So you always get points when it seems like you're from around here. You're down to earth, right? These are good people. These are good small town people. Cignetti seems like one of those guys. But one of the other reasons I admire what Indiana has done this season is because, by the way, Morgantown OVAC school. So the fact that a national championship college football head coach graduated from an OVAC school, right? You think of a guy like Lou Holtz, born in Follansbee. He was up at East Liverpool. Bill Mallory, let's keep the Indiana connections going, right? He was the coach at East Palestine. I think at the same time that Earl Bruce was the coach at Salem. Mallory, of course, was the coach when Indiana beat Ohio State the last two times in 1987 and 88. Bruce was the coach in 87. Lot of weird parallels here. Mallory's also the former winningest head coach in Indiana history before Cignetti got there. You think of Nick Sirianni, right? He was at Mount Union, and obviously Woody Hayes has ties. Tressel has ties. You think of all the coaching that comes out of here. Nick Saban, of course, went to Monongah High School. That's now consolidated, but again, not far from here. He's kind of from that in between, on a map, in between New Martinsville and Morgantown. So Saban's from not far from here. I said this to Dirk on a show not long ago. And now you add Curt Cignetti to that list of successful college coaches somewhat from here in the area. But again, that's all besides the point, which terrible, terrible, bad habit. We got to get to the point here, but we got to take a sip of coffee first. Perhaps a little too excited. I've always been a Curt Cignetti guy, right? Because when you a lot of people at the beginning didn't really like him because, maybe he spoke too much. Maybe he spoke in a way that folks didn't necessarily like. And I was like, look, dog, he's won. Other than you look at his first year, other than the two games that he was supposed to lose, Ohio State and Notre Dame, the two teams that played in the national championship, and then this season, all they've done is win, literally. So I'm somebody that says if you're gonna run your mouth a lot, if you back it up, I can't stop you, right? If you go and back it up, if you say, Google me, I win, and then you go win to the tune of, what is it? What's the math here? 11, 16, 27, and 2? You can talk. You can say whatever you want, frankly. But if you look at Indiana's roster, this is where I said this ties back to our other segment. There's no 5 stars. I just had this conversation a couple hours ago. I felt as though I articulated it quite well, much better than I'm trying to do right now. But I've always been somebody that has been kind of on the coach's side when it comes to a high school football coach and a high school football program parting ways. And if it comes out that the school wanted to move in a different direction because they weren't getting the results that they wanted, I'm kind of on the coach's side on these things. I give them the benefit of the doubt because a lot of times I look at what resources do they have. Again, when we say resources in high school athletics, we are talking about the athletes that happen to be walking through the hallway, right? Kropka said you can't control who moves into the town 20 years ago and has a family, and now there are athletes in the hallways, right? You can't control how many of them. You might have a bunch of big guys, and so you're set for the offensive line, but where's all your skill guys? Or it could be the opposite. You got a lot of guys that can run really fast, but you don't have any big guys for your lines of scrimmage. All of that's out of your control. And so that's why I've always given, you could be, again, to further illustrate this, you could happen to inherit a football program and a district that has
26 guys capable of playing football, and maybe 3 of them are lineman size, true lineman size. Or you could be a coach in a district that has 72 guys equipped to play football, and 19 of them have the body to play on the line of scrimmage, right? And you frankly can't control that because, again, you don't control the kinds of athletes that walk through your hallways. Well, then somebody pushed back on that to me and said, that's why that coach is being hired. It's the development, it's the coaching that they need to provide to get the most out of those athletes, right? You look at a guy, I just mentioned Derek O'Hara, does a phenomenal job. They're not blessed with numbers. They're not blessed with size at all. Yet they've been really good the last couple of years. They've made it to the playoffs and had great success, and we enjoyed talking to him. That's a prime example of a guy who maximizes the capacity out of his football team. And so you look at a guy like Curt Cignetti. He's done that at Indiana, and he's had success with no 5 stars. He's had a lot of guys that, a lot of 3 stars, some 2 stars, a couple of 4 stars, but no 5 stars is the big takeaway, right? So you look and people will say age, people say all these kinds of things, but when you really get down to it, it's the development. Now, while I think that's great, and I love it for the folks out in Indiana, I was in South Bend earlier this year. I was in West Lafayette earlier this year. Never got a chance to get to Bloomington. Maybe we'll get to Assembly Hall for some hoops later this winter, but we'll see. I doubt it. But I feel so happy for the folks out in Indiana. But what Cignetti has done, you can already see this at the college game. First of all, we've gotten into a terrible habit, I think, just in the sporting landscape of having guys on too short of a leash. Look at John Harbaugh. There were talks about this when it comes to Mike Tomlin. And I said to folks for a long time, like, better not get rid of Tomlin, or, what are you going to say when you don't win 9 games for the next 10 years? Shouldn't have got rid of him. Well, you should have been saying that before they got rid of him. And they didn't get rid of him. He stepped down, but the Ravens got rid of Harbaugh. There were talks about this with Ryan Day. There were talks about this happened to James Franklin, right? It's happening now to Dan Lanning. We already keep guys on too short of a leash. I don't think that's very healthy. Naturally, if you're this close, if you swing and you miss, you just barely miss so often, in my mind, eventually you're going to get there. That's just the way it works in my mind, in my opinion. And another thing that we've gotten that's going to creep into the college game, and I hope it doesn't quite creep into the high school game, but you watch because of what Cignetti has done. A college administration is going to find the next hot football coach and say, look, we're going to give you all these resources. When we speak about college, now we're talking financially, right? We're going to give you the money for facility upgrades, NIL. You can pay any transfer that you want. You can get the roster that you want. We're going to give you a healthy salary and a healthy sum of money to pay your staff. And we're going to literally give you everything you want. Go make it happen. And if that guy doesn't make it happen, especially after what Cignetti has done in 2 years at Indiana, if that guy doesn't make it happen in 2-3 years, but maybe he's right there, right? Maybe he's just about to turn the corner. I think this is going to cause colleges to have an even shorter leash, and coaches are not going to like it, right? Like, everybody loves Curt Cignetti, obviously. Personally, I don't think there's anything you can say about the guy, but you gotta imagine some of these coaches, the young ones, or the new hires, they got to hate the fact that Cignetti has accomplished what he has, because all that means is that's going to change the landscape, and it's going to cause ADs and presidents to expect similar results. Listen, Cignetti, I already believe, is kind of in a class of his own, just like there won't be another Nick Saban. I don't think there will really be another Curt Cignetti. There's not going to be another Woody Hayes. These guys are unicorns, right? So you can't expect that to be duplicated. So again, I think it's bad for the culture when we talk about the hiring process and the expectations of everything. And now that you look at what he's done when it comes to not having any 5 stars, that's going to say, oh, well, Cignetti was able to develop a bunch of misfits, as they called themselves many times this season. And so we expect, you're going to see this in college, and I hope you don't see it in high school, but again, you're going to have schools looking for elite developers. And what makes a team great is the fact that there aren't many of those out there. And naturally, just again, mathematically, teams have to be bad every year and teams are going to be good every year. There's probably more teams than there are elite developers. And so, again, I think schools are going to have a little bit of a expectation issue. They're going to expect more than what they can get. And again, in my mind, the whole thing is a slippery slope. But that's where I stand on all that. We've got time. Let's take another break, and I'll come back and we'll wrap this up with one more conversation and revisit something that we talked about a couple times a little while back on Hometown Huddle. Tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle is proudly brought to you by Waterfront Hall. Anything from food, a bar, live music, different events, weddings, a spa, you name it, they've got it all here at the Waterfront Hall, right in Wheeling, the heart of the Ohio Valley, right between WesBanco Arena and Interstate 70. Once again, big thanks to Waterfront Hall for sponsoring tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. You can visit them at www.waterfronthall.com. One last thing before we get you out of here. The news out of Western Central Ohio is that the elite wide receiver prospect, Jameer Brown, sound familiar? He is transferring from Wayne High School in Huber Heights, the same high school Braxton Miller went to, and he's going to be attending Big Walnut, just north of Columbus, this upcoming fall. And that you don't think anything of that. There are transfers that happen around here all the time. Folks transfer. And so on the surface, you don't think anything of it, but Jameer Brown, where have I heard that before? Oh, he was the guy that was directly linked to Ohio legalizing NIL, the OHSAA allowing NIL for the first time ever, right? That happened at the tail end of 2025. Brown was kind of at the forefront of that whole story. And listen, I've got two thoughts on this NIL thing because as we continue to, I think as more information becomes available, it's okay for your opinion and your stance on things to evolve. That's what's happening here. So now I think I nailed it on a couple things, and I think I was wrong on a couple things. First of all, I'm not saying that Brown transferred for anything. I'm not saying he transferred for any reason other than, for all I know, the family may have had to move, right? For all I know, he might want to better his football development. For all I know, there might be better NIL opportunities in the Columbus area than maybe the Springfield or Dayton area, right? So I just listed three possibilities there. Again, I have no idea which ones are true, and I'm not going to assume or allege that this transfer is directly linked to any one of those things, and certainly not the NIL conversation, but I think it's relevant to bring up what was one of the first things that I said about NIL when we first had this discussion. How is this going to impact the transfer situation? How is it going to impact things like open enrollment? How soon would you see guys, again, I'm not saying this is what happened with Brown going from Wayne to Big Walnut. It could be, but again, I have no idea. How soon would you see a guy who, again, think about it. Let's just use this as an example. Like, let's say, perfect example, Bellsville. Let's say Bellsville was still a high school. I went down there over the summer, I believe, and looked at some things. I was walking around the stadium, the high school. The high school was built in like 2012, I think. Beautiful high school, and I think that building is still in use, which is good. But I'm down in this community of Bellsville, and there was seemingly one business in town, and it was the restaurant. I think it's called, I forget what it's called. I think it's the Bellsville Diner. I could be wrong on that, but incredible time, incredible food. But like, it's the only business in town, right? It's a town of just a couple hundred people. And so if you're an athlete in Bellsville, and again, typically the Ohio Valley, a rural, smaller area like this, is the last place to see the changes that happen in the world. I don't think that's a hot take. So again, I don't think this is realistic for this area. I'm just painting this example. So you got a guy there where there are no businesses, and you compare that to a town and a district like Barnesville. Not only are there tons of businesses within the actual city or village limits of Barnesville, but there are also more businesses on the outskirts of Barnesville that still happen to fall in that district. And so how long before somebody says, you know what, there are far more NIL opportunities just based on the amount of businesses that can provide that in District A than there are in District B, so it's time for me to transfer. You look at that, you could say, you could make any number of examples, right? You look at a town like Shadyside. Again, several good businesses there, but there are frankly more in Wheeling or Moundsville. So how long before we see somebody transfer because there's a certain market? And again, I don't think there's. I don't necessarily think there's something to it. The fact that Brown is going from the Dayton Springfield area to the Columbus area, effectively, I don't necessarily think there's something to that. But I'm not saying that that's completely ruled out. Also, right? This is a big possibility. And again, typically the bigger cities is where you see stuff like this happen first. And so, we've got a guy who has a history of trying to profit off of his name, image, and likeness. Again, in its most pure form. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And one of the first things I said was, how is this going to impact folks transferring? What's going to be done about that? And then the guy transfers, right? So again, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, right? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Just saying, right? So the other thing about NIL, right? I said that initially, and actually I've said this both times. We've talked about it on the show and with Donnie as well. I like it if it's done the right way. But as I got thinking about that more often, there's no way. I'm a young guy, and I believe I've thought of a couple different ways to get around the language that they've used. Like, this isn't complicated. You find people all the time that do everything they can to find loopholes and get around certain things, and there's kind of an art to it. But like, I can easily see how this could get bad, right? This could be a situation where you have so many people, you have rules for the sake of protecting the integrity of things, and you have more people sidestepping those rules and getting around them, and it just creates a mess. And you talk about all the ugly stuff that we don't like with NIL. You talk about collectives, all these things, right? Who's that first organization that's actually a collective that's just disguised as a business? All these things, again, who's the first athlete that transfers because there's more NIL opportunities in a different district? You think about all these things, and I thought, my logic on that was kind of primitive, I think. I think it was a little elementary. Yeah, in a fairy tale land, it would be great if you could have NIL. You could have all the good things about it and none of the bad things. Well, that doesn't really work out that way in many things in life. Actually, I don't think it works out that way at all, right? You can't always have all the good with one thing and none of the bad. Try it right. You can't do it. So I equated that in my mind the other day. I was like, that was such a bad way to look at these things, because that's like saying, the analogy I made in my head was, it's like saying we don't need seatbelts. Why don't we need seatbelts? What if you crash? Oh no, you can't. You won't crash. You're not supposed to crash. You're not supposed to crash. You're not supposed to get in an accident. You can't. You're not allowed. It's illegal. You're not supposed to get in crashes. So why do we need seatbelts? You're going to get in crashes, right? It's the same thing. Like, it's the same kind of argument. Just because it's not supposed to happen or it's not supposed to be a certain way doesn't mean that that's not the reality, right? The reality is you will have people treating this the wrong way. You will have people trying to make sure it's done the right way, and I admire those folks and their efforts. But you're going to have a lot of shady activity with all this. I'm just fascinated to see how it unfolds. But again, you can't say we shouldn't have seatbelts because you're not allowed to get in crashes, right? Like, crashes are inevitable. Accidents are going to happen, right? So you need the seatbelt. I hope that analogy makes perfect sense. I hope that makes sense. With that being said, that's all we've got for Hometown Huddle on this frigid, absolutely frigid January 21st, 2026. We will be back February 4th. All I can tell you, we talked about how important Saturday was, not only for all the athletes that accomplished great things and participated in great events, and all the respect goes to them, but we at Hometown Huddle had an incredible Saturday as well, and that will be evidenced on maybe next week's show, February 4th. I'm just saying, you're going to want to tune in, probably going to want to tune in on the 18th as well. We are going to be able to do some pretty big things in the near to not so distant future on Hometown Huddle because of the things that happened on Saturday, and also because folks like you continue to come back each and every week. Sometimes I don't even want to come back to listen to myself speak for such a long time, but we thank you for doing so. And for everybody at Harco Media Network, I'm Drake Watson saying have a great night, and thanks for watching.